All right, welcome to the Savage Rifter Show, Episode 3. I am one of your hosts, Gary, a.k.a. the Murder Hobo, and I'm here with none other than world-renowned and infamous Rift superstar Victor Diaz of the Savage Rift's G+ community fame.
Game on, people. Game on. Welcome to another podcast. As you guys know, we've been doing this for the fans and by the fans. So please, if you guys haven't heard of me or of the Savage Rift G+ community fan page, please make sure you guys get out there and check it out. Great to see you again, Gary. Welcome back from vacation.
Oh, it's nice to be back. It's nice to actually be back to work, as sad as that is. But Savage Rifter, Episode 3. What we do, we break down Savage Rifts piece by piece so Victor can teach me and you, the listener, how to play, enjoy, and understand Rifts. What are we doing today, Victor?
All right, so today we're going to be going over, drumroll please, we're going to be talking about the crazy OCC, or the crazy character class for Savage Rifts.
That is an iconic framework, I do believe. Correct. Yeah, see, I'm learning. You're an excellent teacher.
Yeah, we can't call it an if, because then everyone gets all confused.
Yeah, so over the next few episodes, we are going to be discussing the iconic frameworks, or the different classes, if you will, of the Rifts universe. I'm actually really looking forward to diving into this crazy iconic framework. So let's get right into it, shall we?
Yeah, definitely. Let's go.
Okay, so we'll take a quick break, and I'd mark it, but the mark thing doesn't work very well when I start deleting and moving stuff. The marks stay in place, even though
even though you delete it, yeah.
Right?
Even though you start cutting and pasting, yeah.
Yeah, the episode gets shorter, but the mark stays in the same spot, and then the marks are all off.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay, from the Rifts. What's new in the Rifts community, or in the RPG community? What do we got this week, Rift? Oh, actually, I'm going to start that whole section over. All right, from the Rifts. What's new this week in the Rifts community? I see that you're hard at it again over at the G+ community with this NEMA archive boomers. What are the deets on this one? The looks like you got some Glitter Boy power armor, some power armor suits and stuff like that. What exactly is this NEMA that you've got over there?
All right, so I had this brilliant idea, and like I said in the post, I swear I need to patent that word or that statement, because I say it all the time. But one of the ideas that I had was I put it into the robot and power armor hangar area of the G+ community, and it's called the NEMA Archive. Boomers. The old Glitter Boys used to be called boomers, or at least that's what Kevin Simbita wrote in the Ultimate Edition when he wrote a note at the end of the author's notes, at the end of the Glitter Boy section. He was going to call them boomers. And then he found out that there was this Japanimation movie, or a set of movies series called Bubblegum Crisis, and that they called the enemy robots boomers. So he's like, no, I don't want that word associated with this word, because boom gun, big boom, that kind of stuff. So, he didn't use the name, and they went later on. It developed into the Glitter Boy power armor, and they just called them Glitter Boys, and it stuck, and it's been the same way ever since the first edition. So I thought that's kind of cool. I just picked it up, and I put it away for use later, or just one of those random facts that fills my brain. And then when I was coming up with this, I'm like, hey, a lot of people were gearheads like I was. They're mech heads. They like to get in their power armor, their robots, and blow stuff up. So I was thinking, well, what can we do? Let's put something else out there for the community to help me develop my game a little more. And pretty much I put up a post, and I said, here's a link to some preliminary stats on the Glitter Boy and some variants. If there's, everybody help me out, give me a page number and a Rifts book name so I can look up where all these Glitter Boys are, because there's quite a few of them spread out probably through 6 or 7 books. And so everybody popped in. They gave me all the page numbers, and thank you so much, everybody, for helping me out with that. That helped a lot to get myself organized. And I put it up there, and I said, okay, now that we have all the page numbers and stuff, I'm going to convert every single one of these Glitter Boys into an archive. Now, NEMA is like the UN for the Rifts Earth back before the apocalypse was happening. I forget what the acronym actually stands for, and I'm sure someone can post it if they want to. But I decided, okay, if this is what the United Nations forces were back then, they were called NEMA, I'm going to make the NEMA Archive. and I'm going to call it Boomers, which is going to cover just glitter boys. So I went through, posted it on a spreadsheet, went through and did some fun math and spent a few moments kind of researching the armors and looking at, power levels and sizes and dimensions and, the size of the armor, how tall they were, how much they weighed, and all kinds of other things. Scribbled all down the notes, made some rough calculations so they would be, at least there was some thought put into the conversion. And then the NEMA Archive Boomers spreadsheet was born. And literally you can find every Glitter Boy model that I could find in the books and that the community helped me dig up, from Mutants in Orbit to the Rifts Ultimate Edition, Free Quebec, Triax in the NGR, Japan, South America, Triax, the Black Market. I've got everything from the Shadow Boy to the Triax Glitter Boy, Sidekick Glitter Boy, the Space Glitter Boys, and of course the good old-fashioned classic Glitter Boy, the USA G10. I have all those listed in the spreadsheet, and they give you the pace, the run, the leap in squares, the jet-assisted leap movement, the space movement, flight if it's possible, because some of the Glitter Boys can fly, some of the swim dimensions or speeds, the strengths, because most of the strengths are pretty normal. It is a Glitter Boy, so the power armor doesn't change too much. You might get a +1 or -1, one way or the other in terms of how strong it is. The number of armor points that it gets, mega damage armor, how tough it is, and then of course the size, because there are some that are smaller, such as the Glitter Girl, one of my favorite power armors, and hopefully one of everyone else's favorite power armors. She's a size 2, and a regular Glitter Boy is a size 3, and don't let the size fool you. That armor and that gun that she has is absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, so I went through, I built the archive up, I put all the posts and the conversions up, and this is all my ideas. I didn't get this from anybody. I just went through and did some fun math, did some basic, just, what would happen normally. I didn't try to simulate it. I just tried to make it to see what was fun. And the numbers seem to come out pretty good. There's only one Glitter Boy that worries me, that has a 20 MDC as his armor, and that's the Tarantula Glitter Boy. But when I started comparing the number of mega damage points that the body armor has compared to all the other Glitter Boys, yeah, it was significantly more. So I thought we would make one a little tougher, and we had to go back and forth on a scale. We talked about it amongst my gaming group a little bit and a few others, and want to appreciate everybody's feedback for that one. But in the end of the day, I have a document that shows me every Glitter Boy made in the game converted over to Savage Worlds Rifts rules. And I'm working on the weapons. I'm getting to it, guys. Those are a little bit more difficult and take a little bit more of they're a little bit more time consuming to be able to convert and not end up with 50 weapons that can blow tanks through the sky. Although it is Rifts, but I am trying to give some kind of balance and some kind of semblance of thought to this conversion. So thank you so much for what you guys have done to help me with in the community, but I will get to it again. So that's the NEMA Archive Boomers.
Wow.
Check it out on Savage Rifts.
That's insane. And, I just want to say to the listeners, don't hate me because I don't know Rifts that well, but you can hear just in my voice how excited I am, because I didn't know there was more than just one Glitter Boy armor, but that's like really cool. And the Glitter Girl, that's even cooler. I just imagine myself.
You ought to see the picture. It looks pretty cool. The artwork and stuff. One of the great things that I think everybody agrees with is that the art for all of the Rifts games in Palladium books there's only a few that I would say are kind of don't really go well with the description, but all the other art and all the artists that work on it, it's spot on. And the Glitter Girl is one of those few where like, wow, it's like a long, tall, sexy, slender, silver armored glitter girl, literally a Glitter Boy power armor in a girl shape. Just awesome. And the weapon that she has, a lot of people don't know this, but the weapon that she has can actually be removed from her shoulder and set down on a tripod or mounted like on a tree or a mountaintop. And she can voice activate fire the thing at anything that she has line of sight to.
Oh, that is freaking
exactly.
awesome.
See that smile? Everybody, you can't see his smile, but he's like ear to ear grinning going, I need to play one of these. But yeah, that's one of those cool weapons that a lot of the other Glitter Boys have. Some of the Glitter Boys have missile pods in a backpack or in a shoulder mounted missile pod. Some of them have dual mortars instead of the big boom gun. Like the Tarantula, I think, has two big old like mortar cannons that can fire each and lob indirect fire. It's just stupid, ridiculous, and so much fun when you put them on a table. So much fun to play, especially in a role-playing game. So I hope everybody's enjoying that. Use them. Let me know how they go. Let me know if you guys think it's overpowered or underpowered or not enough. On a side note, one of the things that I was doing when I was putting this together was I was trying to make comparisons to how I used to play Glitter Boys and Power Armor in Palladium's Rifts compared to how they played in Savage Rifts. And they're very, very, very similar, right? They got all the rules conversions and stuff pretty good. But one of the things I was missing was the ability to be able to do a leap or a jet assisted leap in a power armor, jumping from ground level to a third story, because they're just super strong. That's what they can do. And in the Palladium Rifts, they give statistics for it, how far you can go. So when I was looking at it going, this shouldn't be that hard. So thank God for my high school math teacher. I did some math, triangulation, and I, judged distance and how far they could move. Because in the Palladium Rifts, it'll tell you they can jump 300 feet. Okay, well, we convert that into how many squares per feet, or feet per square there are in Savage Worlds. I did some fun math. I tried to balance it out using, a bunch of different statistical math. And next thing you know, I have leap distances and jet assisted leap distances for the Glitter Boys. So I hope everybody likes it.
That's really cool. Yeah, one of the reasons that I was smiling so much is years ago I was playing this game Asheron's Call, and they came out with Asheron's Call 2. And you could play this. I can't remember what the class was. Some big sort of giant guy, but he was essentially just an engineer, or the engineer package. And one of the trees that you could go up, you could literally like drop a turret on the ground and just walk away from it. So me and my buddy Mike would go out and we'd find like these like devastating dragons and stuff that would just tear us down. And we could figure with between the ice walls and the landscape and the turrets, me and Mike would go hide around the corner, and I would just constantly like drop the ice wall so that the stupid dragons couldn't get through, and the turret would just mow them down, and we would just get like thousands of experience points. But anyways,
That's awesome.
It's my kind of deal. I love the engineer class usually in anything, even. I want to say Warhammer. I don't know if you've played that Warhammer online. It's no longer online, but there's a guy that makes a turret thing too, and super cool. I just love remote stuff like that. Setting up traps and whatnot. It's pretty cool.
Wait till we get to the Techno Wizard.
Yeah, I'm excited for.
You're gonna love that. I have a whole 8.5 by 11 cheat sheet on how to convert items into Techno Wizard items, and different parts and things you can build, and how long it takes you and how much money it takes you. There's one of those cheat sheets on the Project Ghost. It's another whole different subject that we can talk about later on the Google Plus page. Those of you who have been around for a while know I've got a whole bunch of stuff hidden around on that Google Plus page. Take a look at it if you haven't already, but there's a great cheat sheet for that. We'll talk about that when we get to the Techno Wizard.
Yes,
but getting back to the NEMA archive, I looked it up real quick, and it is NEMA stands for the North American Economic Military Alliance, comprising of Canada, the U.S., and Mexico forces. This was prior to the Rift Wars, and when the Rifts came into the Earth and the apocalypse hit the Earth. The Boomers and the Glitter Boys are what's left of all of that giant forces.
Very cool. You're just a freaking fountain of information. It's so awesome to have you on here and just like I feel like a trash can, and you're just pouring all of your like Rift stuff right into my, Anyways,
it's like drinking from the water hose, isn't it, Gary?
It is, right? It's just, you're like Siri for Rifts.
That's another idea. I'll work on that. I'll talk to Amazon and see what they say.
Yeah, Sean Masters has just released about a week ago, because we are just getting back from vacation, episode 6 of the Voice of Hope podcast. Be sure to check that out at voiceofhopepodcast.podbean.com / some other stuff. I'll put a link in the show notes, because I'm not reading the rest of that. One other thing that I would like to get to, if you're hesitant to get over to the G Plus community, maybe you're thinking, not another social media, G Plus sucks, I don't want to be there. Or maybe you're just too lazy. I'd like to take a second to go over what you're going to find in the Savage Rifts community. There is a plethora. It's like an encyclopedia of a gazillion Rifts players' brains, all pumping information into this place all at one time. We're going to try and keep this short and sweet, but I'm going to have Victor, because he is the man, the myth, the legend of the Savage Rifts G Plus community, go over it and tell you the kind of things that you're going to find there, sort of the information, like he's basically going to say, hey, this is my library and welcome to it. This is what we got. Take it away, Victor.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gary. So one of the reasons why I started this whole thing, the podcast and all the different types of projects that we've put out there, there's a lot of information just in the Rifts games alone. And I'm sure I wasn't the only player that was out there playing Rifts. I mean, there's thousands and tens of thousands probably of Palladium Rifts players out there. And I really enjoyed the game. and not so much the system. And when Savage Worlds came out, it clicked. Everything just worked, and I absolutely fell in love with it again. 30 years later, 1990 or so when it first came out. I fell in love with it, and I'm like, you know what? I can't be the only player out there. So I looked it up, and I started searching around the Google Plus forums and Facebook and different places, and like nobody had done anything with it. And I'm like, what is everybody waiting for? So I thought, screw it. I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to make one and call it Savage Rifts and hope and pray that everybody likes to talk about what I like to talk about. So at the end of the day, I created the Google Plus page, and it's nothing but content by the fans and for the fans of the Rifts and Savage Worlds. So I'm hoping everybody enjoys that. And I want to give a big shout out to all the general public members of the Google Plus page. Yesterday, we hit 500 members. It's been only a little over a year and a half. So I really want to say thank you to all 500 of you who signed up and decided to follow me on this crazy journey to talk about Savage Rifts. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're getting everything that you want out of it. If you're not getting what you want out of it, well, you know where to find me. You and 499 other people know where to find me. Just post something on the Google Plus page and say, hey, let's talk about this, or hey, let's look at this, or has anyone discussed this? We have done that about 300,000 times here. We talk about a whole lot of subjects. I've tried to break everything up as best as possible. We talk about everything from adventure seeds. We have a section called Anything Can Happen Thursdays, and I absolutely love that. It was an idea that Dustin Smith came up with on the Google Plus page, and we were talking about something, and I posted it on just happened to be a Thursday afternoon. It was a great idea, a little picture for an adventure. And, I asked everybody, hey, what do you guys think of this? And a couple of people posted different ideas that they had. And then Dustin Smith said, anything you can happen Thursdays. This is where we write in all of our adventure seeds based off of the pictures or ideas that we have in our head. And I said, congratulations, Dustin. You just got your first section. And I created a whole section, and he writes in there, thank you so much for taking that over and being consistent, Dustin. He writes an article every Thursday on Anything Can Happen Thursdays. And literally that's some of the weird adventure stories that come up, or adventure seeds that come up, that we talk about a lot. And they're great starters for a lot of the new players. We have a character showcase where people show off their iconic classes and all the different types of classes that we've discussed already, and even some new ones. There's some conversions and other things in there. They're great to see the pictures and the artwork that people post about their own characters, or they tell stories about their characters. There's another section called Castle Refuge. Castle Refuge is where we discuss about all the pieces, the markets, the buildings, the structures, and just the whole social and economic world that is Castle Refuge that are not in the book. Anything that you can come up with, like there's maybe there's a howitzer repair hangar out next to the runway that no one knows about, or there's some underground caves, or just different sections, and everyone comes up and puts up their own stuff and their own maps and their own details of what they've filled in, and we've kind of as a group started to throw more and more into there. There was this one that's fairly recent, a section in there called The Secret Documents, Enemy Tactics. Now, this one really took off. I didn't know how everyone was going to take this. What I had been doing over the years is keeping notes of, as a GM, on how I run monsters and how I run encounters, particularly for Savage Rifts, because they're as complex as you can get. They take everything, every fantasy trope I've ever seen, every science fiction trope you've ever seen, superpowers and all the craziness that is Rifts, throws them all into a blender, and you've got to make that work as a GM, and that's not as easy as it sounds. So I took some of my notes and some of the encounters that I've had in some of the other games and in the game that we had started with when Savage Rifts first came out, and I put it up there, and I thought, well, what's the most iconic character or iconic enemy? And the first thing that came to mind was Splugorth, the Atlantean slavers that are trying to capture all these people. So that's what I did. I posted it up in there, and it has taken off. Everybody's absolutely just jumped on the bandwagon, and they've put in the post and the comments underneath the different creatures that they want to see, or the different enemies that they want to see. I think I've done the Coalition Samus pilots. I've done I think the Shamarian warriors are in there. I'm working on that one. There's everything from Wormwood and the New West. It's ridiculous. There's probably like 20 different monsters that everyone has agreed that they want me to do enemy tactics on. So I work on that. I convert the notes to Savage Rifts, and I kind of put them into a combat example or sample of how they would be used, how the GM uses them, or maybe even how I've used them in the game. So that's always cool. That's really taken off, and I appreciate everybody's feedback for that one. That is so much fun for me, because that's the kind of stuff that I love doing. I've been GMing games for 30 plus years, and I'm absolutely in love with it. So that's awesome. Of course, there's a discussion section where we talk about everything under the sun that's not Rifts, and a few other things, maybe some topics and some news. There's files and forums. You'll find a lot of my Project Ghost and Project Rift. They are two different forms sets that I've put together. They're about 10 to 12 pages each, and they're like a player's journal is Project Ghost, and it's like a template for all the things that you need to keep as a player, some shortcuts and some rules and some templates on how to use power armor in combat, how to be a techno wizard, and how to build those magical items. Stuff from, just a list of powers that you can use bubbles to fill in, or even just blank half pages where you can keep track of all your weapons and all the stuff that you make go boom. And then Project Wraith is the exact opposite. It is a GM's journal where you can make your notes, keep your encounter stuff, and just keep some quick, what is the blindness penalty? What is the penalty for a multi-action and all this other stuff? And it goes through a few examples in those templates that you can use as a quick reference. I needed them because it's Rifts. There's a lot to take on. So I thought if they're not going to make it, I might as well make it. And I put it out there for the community to have, because there's nothing better than free stuff when you're gaming. So I decided to share that with everybody. We have stuff. We talk about miniatures, some of the miniatures that we use, some of the miniatures that are out there for Rifts, and some of the miniatures that are coming up. One of the newer things that we've discussed very recently is called the Neroni Weapon Catalog, and it gets its own section in there. The Neroni Weapon Catalog is literally, we're taking all the weapons from there's aliens called Neroni, and they're kind of like weapon brokers. They sell weapons to planets and all kinds of galaxies all over the known universe and then some. Well, they found Earth, and they're selling their weapons here. And they sell a lot of weapons, and they have great things like plasma pistols and all kinds of just crazy, neat, really slick black weapons. They look really cool, and of course, they're like triple the price of what normal weapons cost. But we decided to convert all of them and put them together. Some of the guys over on the Savage Rifts bulletin boards, look up savagerifts.com. They have done a lot of the conversions already, or they're working on it. I just don't remember your name off the top of your head, but guys, keep doing what you're doing. I'm looking forward to adding the rest of that to the Neroni catalog. I just posted a PDF of that, and it's kind of like a preliminary, just like a template. It probably has like 20 something weapons already in it with I think a power armor, a vehicle, a couple of the odd miscellaneous equipments that are all Neroni. So we called it the Neroni Weapon Catalog for 2109. We talk about OCC and RCC conversions. Now, in the beginning, that was really big. Everyone wanted to see more of their big classes, the other glitter boys, the other types of Mars characters that you could put together, all the mercenaries, all the coalition dog boys, all that stuff. So there's a lot of other creators, a lot of the content creators that went in and decided to do their own OCC or RCC conversion. So all of those you'll find in that section. And then, of course, there comes my favorite and yours, the Robot and Power Armor Hanger, is where we take all of the power armors and all the pictures and all the conversions, and that's where you're going to find the NEMA Archive Boomers and its latest update. Like I said, I'm working on that. The weapons should be coming soon. I mean, the list goes on and on. World building, spell conversions, rules questions, sorcery and psionics, the vehicle garage. I mean, there's probably 20 different sections where you can go into and just live in for a while and keep yourself busy. And like I said before, if you've never been a part of the community, please come out to the community and give it a chance. You'd be surprised at how helpful and how easy it is to get along with everybody. And I'm the only moderator for that entire site. So if I don't like what I see, I tend to usually communicate with that individual and let them know why or what's going on. I've never had to kick anyone off, and I hope I never have. But there's really a great bunch of guys. There's a great bunch of creators, guys that have worked on games like Interface Zero, Shadowrun, Dungeons and Dragons. All of us have touched Rifts in one way, shape, or form, and we're all in there for the same reason, just to enjoy the game. So please come on out if you guys haven't been before. Google Plus Communities. You can find us at plus.google.com/communities, or just type in Savage Rifts Google Plus. As
you were talking about the different topics that you have, I was looking at some of them, and the Neroni Weapon Catalog is actually, it kind of piques my interest. It intrigues me because it's kind of cool to have like a race that just sells weapons and what you can do with that. The OCC RCC conversions, I started going through that as you were talking about it. There is Tattooed Man, Atlanteans, the Devils, the Undead Slayers, Lemurians, like Monkey Boys, like
the list goes on, doesn't it?
Right? Like if you wanted to start your own bestiary for Rifts and stuff like that from old stuff, there's so much stuff in there, it's friggin' crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I've had a lot of conversations with some of the guys that have put those together, and they've done a great job because they not only put it out there, they wait for feedback, and they say, oh, I tried this, or this doesn't work, or no, your math is wrong here. And they're real open to it. They're not like taking offense to you giving them feedback. And if you're wrong, they'll correct you. And if they need to correct themselves, there's some guys that have put in like version 5 or 6 of the same character class because they've gone through and play tested it with a few people, taken the feedback that they've gotten and tried to rework it to make it seem like it's a fair balance for everybody in everybody's game. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is there's a really rare character class, a really rare OCC, occupational character class, and it is called the Ludicrous Mage. It is it didn't get a lot of press. It didn't get printed in the regular books. I think it got printed in the Rifter or the Rifter like annual for Palladium. Well, lo and behold, Dustin Smith, he decided to create the Ludicrous Mage, and he did an awesome job putting it together. And if anybody who's been around for a minute and knows what that is, try that character class. That thing will make you laugh. Just playing it is a lot of fun. It's just one of the neat little goofy off character classes that are in there that a lot of people I think don't realize.
No, that's awesome. I just want to give you a personal thanks from me to you for what's going on there and putting that together. When you're looking at stuff like that and you're new to a system and especially a system like this where there's so many options and so much stuff going on, it's nice to have a place that you can go to ask questions and to get information. So yeah, no, I appreciate everything that you're doing over there. It's cool, and I just wanted to take a minute to sort of let our listeners know what exactly is going on over at the G Plus community, and it really is worth your time to go over there and scour through some of the material if you're interested in riffs.
Yeah, if you've never played Rifts before, or even if you're new to the Savage World system and you're looking for, a campaign to play in, Rifts is a lot of fun if you like that everything in the kitchen sink. It is a little difficult to wrap your mind around. I know we've had a number of conversations, and I've been on a couple podcasts where a lot of new players or a lot of players that are new to the Rifts campaign in general really have a hard time grasping that. Like I can bring a cowboy, a spaceman, an alien, and a dragon all together and adventure, and it's okay, and it works out. And thanks to the genius of Kevin and the Palladium staff, they've really done a great job at combining that together. So if you've never played the game before, or are you just an old player that wants to come back, please take a moment to check out the Google Plus communities. Like I said before, we have 500 members, and it's free. It doesn't cost you anything but your time. Come in and start having conversations with people. You'll be surprised at how easy it is. I didn't know much about the Google Plus community before that. I had maybe joined the Google Plus community about a year before that, and I poked around in a few forums, and I started to realize the great gaming community that we have. So if you've never done anything like this, or you've never gone into that type of software or gone online to be able to communicate with other folks from all over the world, because Gary, we're like a couple thousand miles away from each other here, and he's become a good friend of mine, and I wouldn't have started this conversation if it wasn't for the Google Plus community. And I don't know how many times I've said that. Every single person, even Sean Patrick Fannin, I wouldn't have probably met him if we didn't have this one tool to be able to communicate back and forth with us. So please come around, come take a look at it and see what you like. I guarantee you're going to find something.
Yes, excellent. Okay, Legionnaires field reports coming up. We got to check out the mailbag and see what we got going on there. It's been a while and it's a little dry, but there's a few things that we need to address. So let's head on over to the Legionnaires field reports. You can reach us at the murderhoboshow@gmail.com or get us on Twitter if you can keep it to under 140 characters at the Murder Hobo. Starting that over again too. In fact, you know what? I'm going to get you to read. Huh? I'm going to get you to read that section that I've highlighted, sure. And then we'll go right into it.
Legionnaires field reports. You can reach us at murderhoboshow@gmail.com or get us on Twitter if you can keep it under 140 characters at Murder Hobo Show, or of course at the Google Plus page, Murder Hobo Show under the Nerds International banner, or you can reach myself, Victor Diaz, directly at the Google Plus Savage Rifts page where the community is quote unquote very active.
Yes. Hopefully you wear protection.
You might need it. You'd be surprised how much stuff gets thrown around in those forums.
Wow. Okay. That said, John Nieper dropped us a line a little while ago. Yeah. Let's get right into it. Let's get down and dirty. John Nieper dropped us a line. It says, just a quick comment about extra effort. It adds a D6 to trait rolls. Nothing big, but it seemed at one point on the pod, we were talking about adding it to damage. We just want to do this as a bit of an errata. It adds a D6 to trait rolls. Thanks, John, for pointing that out. And I'm going to let Victor go over this one here from Timothy Carpenter because it's a bit long, but I think it's important that we fix our mistakes. So we're just going to point out the mistakes that we made, and we're going to just acknowledge them and carry on from there. And thanks, Timothy, for pointing out that we're incorrect about things.
Okay, I think I might have to get out my glasses, take a few moments here. Let me go to a couple pages and shuffle through that for a minute. Okay, so let's
I'm going to the bathroom. I'll be back when you're done.
Yeah, really. No, seriously, Timothy Carpenter, thank you so much for submitting the emails and sending them to us and asking us questions, and most of all, correcting us. Just like any game, right? We're not all going to get the rules correct. We're not going to get them right the first time, but I appreciate everyone correcting me because as a GM, I can't do what we do any better than what my players are willing to put up with. So when you guys correct us, it makes us just all better gamers. So he starts out first and foremost. He says he's a huge fan of the podcast. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening. We don't get paid for this, so we appreciate it a lot for listening. He says this is exactly what I was looking for when I got into Savage Rifts, breaking down all the rules of Savage Rifts and Savage Worlds and figuring out how they all came together. I think Gary, you and him are in the same boat there.
Absolutely. Yep. This is exactly why we started this podcast because, I invested heavily in Savage Rifts and I haven't played it that much. And I was almost afraid to get into it. So I decided that this is the one way that I'm going to get into it and start learning.
Oh, you're in the deep end now. Get out those waders. You're going to need them. He goes on to ask a couple of questions. And he says there's a couple of rules as written that he wanted to make sure we're all starting on the same page. I agree. Let's go right into it. He's talking about the Born a Hero setting rule, and he talks about the effect of cybernetics on leyline wizards. Thank you very much. That's how I like to say it. In addition, to talk about the effect of strain on spellcasters, there's an edge on page 72 called Cyber Psychic Alignment. Oh, yeah, that rings a bell there. That is available to casters to mitigate the penalty for 1 point of straining. So Gary's leyline wizard, for example, could get used to having cyber gills and take this edge to no longer have the -1 penalty to all his spellcasting rolls. So there you go, Gary. That's one of the things that I think I had talked to you about after the fact, that you could do that way with the cyber psychic alignment. Yeah, it'll get rid of that penalty.
So I was also under the impression, it's been a month. I've been on vacation. I'm trying to refresh myself. But are you not allowed a certain amount of cybernetics? It's like half your vigor or something like that?
That's correct. So everybody gets a certain amount of strain that they can have on their character. And strain is caused from the number of cybernetics that you take on. Some cybernetics have a higher strain than others. And the more strain you have for psychic and or spellcasters, it makes it more difficult for you to be able to cast spells because it's kind of like you're grounded. The more metal that you have on you, the more stuff that's not flesh and blood, it kind of grounds your magic and it makes it that much harder for you to pull the energy around and out of the rifts and out of the universe in order for you to be able to make the crazy effects that you do. So everybody does get a certain level of strain that they're allowed to use, kind of like points. I think it's 6 points of strain to use to be able to buy cybernetics. The more strain you have, the more penalties it starts to work out against you.
Now, the combat cyborgs, they get some kind of upgradable edge to them?
That's correct. They do get an upgradable edge. The upgradable edge allows them to add an additional 6 strain so they can customize themselves. It can only be taken one time, and that's one of the special things about being a combat cyborg. It's an iconic framework edge that's automatically built into the new class. Very
cool. Yeah, see, this is the thing with Rifts is there's a lot of this give and take kind of, you can do this, but there's this. Sure. One of the fantastic things about Savage Worlds as well. There was also some confusion regarding the complication loss of dexterity. I like that he put all the page numbers in so that we don't have to do the work. That makes it super easy. The -2 penalty only applies to the agility rolls and link skills not directly related to combat. This rule is going to vary GM to GM, but I see, or what does he say? But I see it is if you want to pick a lock, disarm a bomb, or dance to the table, it's -2. So that's something else that we might have messed up. And then lastly, what's this with the extra effort rule on page 122?
So extra effort, what you can do is Blah, 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 blah. I just lost my train of thought here.
Don't worry, I'll edit this.
Yeah, thanks. I may actually have to look up the rule. You can only use extra effort on a trait roll. Yeah, I probably should look up the rule. Just give me a second.
Sure thing.
1001, 1002, ping. Let's see here. Oh, no, I have to look it up in the actual rulebook, God forbid. I mean, the Savage Rifts book.
Core rules, right?
Core rules, right. No, actually, no, the Tommorow Legion Players Guide. Extra effort, bottom left-hand corner. Yeah, Gary, so we were talking about the extra effort rule. Now, in the rule book, I believe the setting says, and I'm paraphrasing here, you can spend a Benny and add a D6 to a trait roll instead of re-rolling it. And of course, the D6 can explode, or what they call acing, and then the final result is added to the trait roll. But when you use extra effort, it cannot be combined with any other roll. You must you can either re-roll or you can use extra effort and you get an extra D6 is added to that trait roll instead of re-rolling it. So normally, for those of you who are not familiar with Savage Worlds, you get these things called bennies. Bennies are usually tracked with poker chips. And you can spend a Benny, give it up to the DM or put it back in the bucket or whatever, and you get to re-roll your dice. But with the extra effort edge, instead of using the chip to re-roll it, you can use a Benny, dump the chip, and you get an extra D6 to try to add that number, whatever it comes up as, to your total on your die roll. But you do one or the other. You cannot do both. So you are correct, Timothy, when you're talking about the extra effort on a trait roll, you cannot do both. You can't re-roll the extra effort roll. Rules as written state that you can only use it either or, and you have to spend a Benny to be able to do that. So great catch there.
Yeah. Suck it, Tim. Thanks for your email, jerk.
It was all good. Now the game's just gone to pot. That's just what it is.
If you catch us saying things that are not correct, I would appreciate it if you sent him, drop us a line, let us know what we've done incorrectly so that we can correct it, and then I can call you a jerk on the next episode when we fix it. So, all right,
I'll post your home address there on the Google Plus page so everybody can send the hate mail to Gary.
That's right. You can just come and throw rocks at my house.
Remember, you can reach him at murderhoboshow@gmail.com. Send him all of your mails, send him all your questions. And if anything else, if you're looking for a really quick answer, honestly, post it on the Google Plus page. There have been many times where I've had rules questions either in the middle of games or, within a few minutes, and I've had like half a dozen people answer back, oh yeah, it's this page or it's this rule, or no, you're using it wrong, or yeah, that's exactly how you do it. Everybody's really great about giving you feedback. So please, everybody go out to the Google Plus page and post your questions or send us your emails at murderhoboshow@gmail.com.
Just do it. Okay, let's get over to the Nexus Point. I want to break out the main topic of the show today, which is going to be the crazy iconic framework. We're going to learn all about this crazy lunatic of a character, what it is, what it does, the mom, which is something that I thought was pretty funny. That's a bit of an acronym there, but yeah, we'll see you at the Nexus Point. Okay, welcome to the Nexus Point. Today's topic is going to be the iconic framework called Crazy. Victor, what is a crazy?
If you could think of one iconic character that could play a crazy in the Rifts movie, unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But in all honesty, I would have loved to have seen Robin Williams play a crazy. The only reason I say that is because those of you who know who Robin Williams is, and I'm sure around the world, his spirit and his jokes continue to go on. A really great comedian, American. He's been around for a long time. Everybody remembers his start in Mork and Mindy and all the characters he's played in the 20 or 30 years that he's been making movies and putting on shows and comedy specials. Really admire him as an actor and as a person. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But I think he would have made a great crazy, because a crazy, you literally have to be a little bit off your rocker to be able to play an OCC character class. This OCC character class. And what it comes down to is you have decided to give up your sanity to be experimented on using what's called the MOM conversion, the mind over matter conversion. So they stick a bunch of nanites, a bunch of probes, and a bunch of other studs and other things into your brain. Some of those studs or some of those pieces of technology stick out. So some moms may have plates and other weird types of shapes or discs, plugged in around their brain, under their hair, or, growing out and jutting out underneath their helmet or whatever. Some don't. Some are built into the cranium, so they're not necessarily showing. But what that nanite technology and all those electronics and other stuff that they put inside your brain, what they do is they give the human body the ability to be able to increase its strength, dexterity, endurance, intelligence, skill level, sight, everything that you read in the comic books, you can get turned into almost by volunteering for this, what's called a mom conversion. Or if, you save up your credits for a few 30, 40 million years, most lunatics, crazies, criminals, and some of the not so criminal are willing to pay for this. And it can run in the neighborhood of 750,000 credits up to 3 or 4 million credits for the conversion. Yeah. And by the way, it's illegal in most states, in most city states. The coalition will pay for you to be a mom, but you have to spend, or go through the mom conversions, but you have to spend a certain number of years in service. Or if you get, if you're more of the criminally inclined, you can, put your body to the test, and you can owe the cyberdoc or the criminal organization that you get the conversion from. You pretty much owe them your life until they say you're free, or you've paid your debt. Some will do that for a decade, but many don't live that long. Crazies tend to have some pretty serious side effects from becoming a super soldier, a super ninja, a Power Ranger on steroids is pretty much what it is. And yeah, the problem with the mom conversions, though, it starts to mess with your psychosis. It starts to mess with your id. It starts to mess with your, those little shadows that you see in the corner. Well, now you just don't see them. You see them, talk to them, they talk back, and you think they're real, but nobody else sees them. It's that kind of nut jobs that you have that, trying to go in and get the mom conversion. So back in the day, as Kevin puts it, they used to have a mom conversion. They used to call them Mama's Boys. And because of the MOM conversion, that was one of the nicknames that they called them besides the Crazies. But the Crazies just stuck. So a little bit of side information there from the past, from the old books. And if you guys are wondering where I get all this great deep information from, well, yes, I do my research, but I'm looking in the Rift's Ultimate Guide. I actually have one of the Ultimate Gold editions with Kevin's signature on it. I'm quite proud of it. I picked it up somewhere, and I just absolutely love the book. It's got some great stuff. But just pick up any one of the Rift's guides, and you'll be able to look through the crazy OCCs, especially the original character classes. And those are awesome references. You'd be surprised at little bits of stuff you can find in there.
If you were to meet Kevin at a convention, oh, wow, I feel like you'd be the guy that would scream like a girl. You'd be like, ah! And you'd rip your shirt off and have him sign your nipples or something crazy like that.
No, Kevin. No, I would not, Kevin. I promise. I may do that afterwards in the bathroom, in the privacy of my own hotel room afterwards. But no, I would not. In all honesty, I would love to meet him. I would love to spend time and talk riffs and play a game or do whatever he wants to do. I think it's amazing that we have, in today's day and age, the ability to create games like this and stories like this that are coming out of people's minds and share them with the public, and to be able to see what they like and don't like about it and have those discussions. Just be an adult and have a conversation with someone. And I have found that as I speak to more and more people that are in the industry, we all put our pants on the same way. We all have the same problems. We all have separate jobs, and we just do this as a hobby, and we absolutely love it. I absolutely love the Rifts game, and I absolutely love the Rifts writings and stories and pictures and things I've seen over the years. So if I ever meet you, Kevin, I look forward to it. It would be an absolute pleasure.
Mm-hmm. And I will give you no assurances that I won't rip my shirt off, scream like a girl, and charge you.
Run, Kevin. If you see him coming, run.
I like that they compare the crazy to the juicers. So the juicers are chemically altered, but the crazies actually have these cybernetic kind of enhancements with nanotechnology and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's correct. So one of the things that they make is the comparisons, right? So like you said, juicers are chemically induced. They put some chemicals into the human body and they get it juiced up. And they get that from the old 1970s bodybuilders used to use what's that substance called? You're not supposed to use it when you're bodybuilding. It's illegal.
Don't ask me. I've never done it before.
Steroids, that one. Well, that kind of steroids. Well, back in the day, and I'm showing my age here, they used to call them juicers. That's kind of, what they used to juice up. They used to shoot steroids, and that's what the bodybuilders used to call them. So it kind of stuck. And I think that's where Kevin got the idea from. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty certain of that one. But crazies are the exact opposite. Everyone knows the power of the human mind and the ability for the human body to rebuild itself, human evolution, genetic mutation, and to transform itself and literally combat all these crazy things that are always trying to kill us on this planet. Well, the mom conversion puts that to an exponential power of 1,000 and gives the human body or the human mind the capacity to be able to bring that into reality, be able to increase your strength, your toughness, your agility, your ability to mimic skills physically, mentally, mental prowess, be able to change your vision, be able to look into different spectrums of the visible light and all that stuff in that cybernetic conversion. And it's really, really awesome. But like everything else, just like the juicer has drawbacks, a shortened lifespan, the mom conversion does kind of the same thing. You may live a little longer, but because most crazies tend to be a little crazy, have some OCD, have some phobias that are really, really major, they tend to end up killing themselves or blowing themselves up in a blaze of glory, or just trying to get themselves into situations that they can't escape from, and that's simply because of their psychosis and whatnot. One of the crazies that I play with in my monthly game of Savage Rifts, for some local guys here, we get together and we play Rifts once a month. He's a crazy, and some of the psychosis that he has is that he wears a white bunny suit. Those little suits when you were a little kid, when you were in Easter, with like the bottom, bottom, your butt has two buttons and it opens up a flap in the back so you can go take care of your business, and has the two floppy ears or whatever. Yeah. And
I don't know what you mean when you're a little kid. I have one now.
Yeah, I've seen you with the pink and yellow one running around, Gary. It ain't a pretty sight, folks.
It's for sexy time.
Whatever flicks your bit, brother. Whatever flicks your bit.
Carry on.
So his character wears this suit, right? And it's really ratty and torn up, and we don't know if it's really his or not. It looks like he's been wearing it for a really long time. But just in this last game, we were all kind of, fooling around and joking a little bit and probably pushing the game into some into some corners that we probably don't usually play in. But we stopped and we looked, and everybody goes, "Did you see that? What? I thought I saw his ear move. Did his ear move? Is it windy? Did his ear move?" And we were just went in a totally different direction with that one. And the guy stopped and going, "What are you guys talking about? There's no ears." And that was the first time we realized that he doesn't know he's wearing a bunny suit.
Oh, wow.
It's that kind of crazy. This is the guy who's playing a crazy that thinks that if he does not stop spinning, like doing ballet pirouettes, he is going to fly off the earth because gravity's not going to work.
Wow, that is insane.
And that's exactly the type of character that you need to play. You need to go way out there. And even in the book, when you look up the crazy hero under the Rift's Ultimate Guide, it even says, go and pick up your local psychologist guide and open the book to whatever page randomly comes up, put your finger down on it, and just pick a psychosis and go with it. Because the crazy is one of the funnest character classes to play. It's literally like a super juicer ninja on steroids that's afraid of little girls, that kind of stuff. It's just absolutely fun. You can have so much fun with it. But when I started the conversation, I was talking about Robin Williams, and I think his characters, his ability to be able to mimic other people, his voices, his all the different radio hosts and comedic specials and things that he's done. I think it would be an absolute blast if he had the opportunity to play a crazy in the game, because he was a little nuts himself.
Yeah, without a doubt, he would nail it. I don't know if you've listened to the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, but they did a Tomorrowland. I'm probably going to get it wrong, but basically they did Garnertown Gambit. And one of the guys that's on the podcast, I'm not sure who it is, he plays it crazy. And it was actually cool because his form of crazy was while they're playing, they have a chat room that they're all hanging out in. And he was using the people from the chat room as voices in his head, which I thought was a brilliant idea. You know, he played that up. Yeah, it was neat, right?
Yeah.
That's a cool idea.
That was absolutely awesome. I had never thought about doing it that way. Someone, you know, who has that, there's voices in my head literally, and he had to do what the voices were telling him, and they were telling him to do different stuff, and he was doing it in game as he was playing. He was online texting these folks, going back and forth. I thought that was it would be fun to just play with the people around the table to be the different voices as they're playing their characters, you know, because they could be in on some of the jokes or really do something crazy. That would be absolutely awesome. You know, we were having this conversation at our game table just last weekend when we played, and one of the things that I told him is there was a great idea that I had seen, and it's actually another one of those ideas that, you know, Kevin put into the Ultimate Edition that I don't think is in the original. A crazy with a multiple personality disorder, and every single personality that he has is a different character sheet with different powers and abilities. So you have the little boy psychic, you have the, you know, the old lady burner, you know, the pyrokinetic, you have the guy who thinks he's a juicer, you know, he thinks he's a dog boy, the regular guy, the, you know, the telephone pole worker kind of guy, you know, just like 6-7 different character sheets, put them all together, and you're playing a crazy with MPD, and he thinks he has a boom gun, and it's really just a big pipe duct taped to his shoulder.
One of the edges, one of the edges that I took with my Rifts character was, what's the one where you stand up and if a club comes up, you have to make a smarts check, and if you fail your smarts check, you spend the first round basically telling the guy how you're going to kick his ass. I can't remember the name of it, but it would be kind of cool if you had all of those character sheets in front of you, and on your initiative, when a club comes up, you got to make a smarts check, or just
It's called a monologuer.
Monologuer, yeah.
It's a hindrance that you can pick up. It's so in the book, it talks about it on page 17 under the crazy character class, and it says it's a psychic degradation table. And when you roll this one, you know, you have to roll a d6 for all the different type of psychic degradations that you can choose from. One of them is monologuer, and yeah, it's a hindrance. And it's explained in the new section under page 66. But check that out. Whenever the character pulls a club, like you said, you have to stand there and like tell them the reason of what you're going to do or why you're here. You're like, you know, Moses parting the Red Sea, and you're going to say this great, profound, you know, 10-sentence paragraph before you announce the death of the enemy or whatever. It's absolutely awesome. I've seen a couple of people do that, and just they're literally pulling rabbits out of their hats. Like just magic is happening at the table because they've worked themselves up into this frenzy. You've already gotten into, you know, you've already lost it. You're trying to get it together. Those are different abilities and different things, happenstances that go on when you're playing a crazy, and then all of a sudden you draw a club. Okay, here we go. 407 years ago, I shot this man in the back of the head. But wait, there's more, and you just go into it. Just ham it up. For those of you who are theater majors, or you know, you have any kind of acting bug, or you like to do a lot of improv, a crazy is the funnest character you could play. I absolutely love to watch people play it. I'm so intimidated by it, honestly, because there's so many directions I would go. I'd feel like Robin Williams on speed. It would be nuts to absolutely play this character class because you can do it all. You can fight hand to hand. You can get some good shooting rounds in. You can have all kinds of special abilities. You can be really quick. You have lots of super reflexes, super endurance, heightened senses. And on top of all of that, you just happen to be a minor psionic on top of that. So make things levitate and all kinds of other stuff. It's one of the funnest classes to play.
Yeah, with your multi personality deal on a club, you have to make a smarts trick or just randomly pull out a character sheet and start playing that character.
Oh yeah, see, that's awesome. Oh, I'd love to play that. That would be great.
You just randomly do stuff.
Character classes right now.
So according to the Rifts guide here, it says that according to sketchy historical records, the original technology leading to mind over matter, it says that it more commonly referred to as MOM, implants first appeared in South America during the years or the last years before the coming Rifts. I have a question about this. Now, in the old school Rifts, not in Savage Rifts, but in the old ones, you were mentioning that there's different books for different areas. Would this MOM stuff, or could it be that you could travel to South America because this is where sort of it originated from? You could do some kind of side quest or something like that, shoot down to South America, maybe find like an old MOM installation and check for like new tech or old tech or something along those lines. Is that where you would find like sort of the majority of this mind over matter technology? Did it come out of the original Rifts South America?
So they're talking about, yeah, I think where you're going with this is if you want to take your character off onto a side quest and travel to South America, you can go find the mom conversion factory or whatever where they made them. Well, the mom conversions happened in South America. What this was before the apocalypse, before all the rifts came and decimated the world. The mom technology was resurrected or reinvented by the coalition. And then, of course, all the criminal syndicates managed to find out how to do this type technology and get it to the masses, the criminal masses, and the coalition used crazies to be able to come up with special forces guys and have them work for them on a mercenary type base. We give you the mom conversion, you fight for us for 5 years, that kind of thing. So that all that technology has been dug up and reused in different ways or forms. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's easier, but you'll find it in different areas of the world now, whereas prior to the rifts, most of that was being done in South America in secret labs under R&D labs by different companies in different countries that were using them there. I could actually look up the old South America book and find out if there was or is any kind of information on the background of those. I just don't remember off the top of my head. There's 2 South America books. That's how big they are. And
wow.
They have quite a bit of content, so I don't remember them all right off the top of my head, but there's no reason why you can't. It's your world. It's your game. Make it be what you want it to be. If there's a secret mom factory that's in hiding or broken down or maybe waiting to be found, put it out there. Put it out there and play it.
Hey, maybe you're getting some kind of impulse to your cranium or something like that, and every once in a while you receive an image or maybe a small sound bite or something like that, and you could just roll your character into going that route with it.
I love it, man. That would be awesome. It would be cool to have a crazy that kind of leans to the right all the time. Why are you leaning to the right all the time? I don't know. My head keeps being pulled towards the equator, and when I get closer to the equator, it wants me to go towards the South Pole. My internal compass points that way, but that's not north. And everybody just looks at him going, yeah, okay, next.
Do you remember?
They don't know whether to believe him. And then at the end of the day, they're like, hey, why are you going that way? I don't know. It feels like I need to go this way. And they end up saving the world, or, that's the whole point of the quest, was to be able to get there. And all of a sudden the crazy starts to make sense. And that's when you're really in trouble.
There was an entire X-Files show or episode on that, where this guy had some kind of weird ear implant or something like that, and the whole show was he had to go west, and if he didn't go west, he thought his head was going to explode, and they finally capture him, and they stop him, and then Mulder looks in at him like, what's wrong with this guy? And poof, his head explodes all over the window. He had to go west.
I'm going to have to look that one up. I like the X-Files when it was around. I don't remember that episode, but I probably am trying to hear some, in the back of my mind, pulling that one storyline out and pulling that thread, and that's what's coming out. But that's awesome. That's the kind of stuff that I think a lot of GMs don't realize that they have right in front of them. It takes a little creative writing, right? It takes a little organization to be a GM, but there's thousands and thousands of stories out there that you can play riffs for, particularly one for a crazy. Just make it fit in the game that you have using the characters that are in front of you. You'd be surprised how easy it is. Just take one thread and go with it. And when in doubt, have a tribunal. Sit around and talk with the guys that you're playing games with and go, hey, I have this idea. Let's go in this direction. And you'd be surprised how much easier the game goes when you have those. Don't hold those ideas in. Don't keep them just to yourself, or write them in your own journal. Share them with your players. Share them with other players. Share them with the people on the Google Plus page. I'm sure we can come up with 100 different ideas to make an entire campaign to last you a few years.
One of the things that I like to do as a DM is I like to throw out little hooks for individual players. Not something that the party can get into, but something that your individual player can get into. In one of the D&D campaigns that I ran quite some time ago, there was a rogue that wanted to get into the Thieves Guild. And I was basically, I just strung him along and told him the whole point of you coming to this town was to sort of infiltrate and take over the Thieves Guild in this town and whatnot. Well, anyways, turns out this guy rolls in and he starts, he wanted to gamble. So I'm like, all right, let's gamble. Guy pulls out this diamond and sets it on the table. It's a 100 gold piece diamond, pretty common. Well, not really common, but they go for it, and the player wins the diamond. Little did he know that the diamond was like a spy device, and the head of the Thieves Guild guy was keeping track of him. Ends up finding out where he's sleeping, comes in, drugs him in the middle of the night, and he wakes up in this guy's room with a ring in his finger that now literally, if he doesn't do what he wants, he's going to lose his finger, lose his hand, or, that kind of stuff. So But little side quests, individual things for each player. So just little short quips, get player buy-in. It's pretty neat.
Sure. I mean, rinse, reuse, and repeat, right? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you can bring that whole concept of what you just talked about into Rifts. And, you don't have to use the whole thief character into a game, and he comes into a tavern or into an old city or a village that doesn't have a lot of power, and he goes into a bar, like an Old West bar, and there's a couple of cowboys playing poker, and he sits down, and one of them puts out the jewel, right? And you get into a firefight over it or whatever, and then some criminal comes in and says, I want my jewel back, and you get knocked out and captured, and he says, guess what? Now you have this ring that you're wearing. You can use that same story. Rinse it off, reuse it, and repeat the story again. Just make it work into the game that you're doing. And there's no reason, no one's going to tell you, hey, I've heard that story before, especially if you've never played with that group or it's an old story that you've used from before. But we digress. We need to get back here and talk about the crazies.
Let's do it.
Crazy ourselves.
Hero's Journey. 5 roles. Crazies gain 3 roles on any of the following tables. And then it goes off to list the different tables. Hero's Journey, for those of you that aren't aware, are basically tables from body armor, close combat weapons, different things like that. And you can roll on these tables to sort of customize what your character gets for starting gear, which is pretty sweet. So the crazies get 5 different options or 5 different roles, and you can, and what does it say here? You can gain 2 additional roles on any tables except those dealing with magic. I really like the Hero's Journey in Rifts. The customization, the little tweaks. When I do this kind of stuff, or at least when I did it for the Leyline Walker, I took what I got, whatever it said, and built my character that way, which was pretty cool. But yeah, a fan of the Hero's Journey. It's very cool.
Yeah, so am I. I think that was one of the genius things that they did with the books, where a lot of the OCC classes in the old game used to give you a lot of starting equipment, starting powers, and a lot of choices and a lot of selection. I think a lot of players like that because they want to make their character class, but they don't want to be their fighter or their crazy or their glitter boy, just like the other glitter boy, just like the other crazy. So you get a lot of options in there. Where Rifts in Savage Worlds, they managed to condense all that into some really varied and wild 20-piece tables. You wrote a D20, by the way, and 1 through 20, but depending on what you roll is what you get. They're really varied. I mean, even the psychic table or the sonic powers table, the magic powers table, artifact magic weapons, or there's somewhere you roll a 20 or a 7 or a 13 and you get to choose anything on the table. And that's always nice because you're still giving the character or giving the player the choice to be able to do that. And the Hero's Journey rolls for the crazy character class or iconic framework, you get 3 on a certain list of tables, and then you get 2 on any except for those dealing with magic. And that's like, I don't know, there's at least half a dozen or so tables that you can choose from, if not more. I mean, just an example, I'll pick one of the random tables and I'll roll 7's my favorite number, so I'll choose 7. And it goes on to say something to the effect of, you've seen enough trouble to know it's coming. Your character has the danger sense edge. And that's absolutely awesome because normally you wouldn't go through the book and pick that necessarily unless you were building your character around it or you had used it in another character and you were aware of it. So it's a great way to randomize your character and still give it a lot of fluff and flavor and be effective either in combat or in certain situations depending on what your character can do. But you're right, it's really, really a great one of the great secret little tricks that they use to be able to make the character classes, all the character classes, much more unique.
So as we progress into the crazy a little bit more, one of the headers here says losing it.
I absolutely love losing it. So for those of you who don't know, losing it means that you've gotten to the point where you no longer can control yourself. You can't control the voices in your head. You're throwing caution to the wind. You're just absolutely losing it. What happens with this is losing it allows you to gain what's called the Berserk Edge. And that should be self-explanatory. For those of you who don't know, please take a look at your Savage Worlds Deluxe rulebooks and take a look at the Berserk Edge. You'll absolutely fall in love with it.
Yeah, it's neat. You smack a bunch of people around, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm pretty sure that the Berserk Edge also allows you to smack your own team, your own party, because you're going nuts.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, don't get in his way. You're gonna definitely. You're not the only one that's gonna lose it. Somebody else will too. And then also, it also says that whenever you're losing it, your crazy gets the fearless edge. And well, that's kind of a self-explanatory one. You're not going to be afraid of anything. You're not going to back away from anything. You can find the fearless edge in your monstrous abilities, also available in your Savage Worlds Deluxe Rulebook.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward too. Immune to fear and intimidation, which will come
really
in
simple.
super handy if you're in the middle of fisticuffs. You're trying to crash some skulls for a free beer at the bar.
Works every time.
Yeah, while in this state, you cannot use your psionic abilities or anything requiring concentration. I super like that.
Yeah, you're too busy, literally going nuts, right? And just because you're fearless doesn't mean you're thinking straight either. So none of your psionic abilities work. You can't do anything like, here, put this key in the door and open the door. What door? I'm busy fighting off these flies. What flies? You don't see the giant flies? It's those kind of conversations that tend to happen whenever a crazy is losing it.
After they lose it, how do they get it together?
Well, that's the title of the next paragraph, Gary.
Right?
And that's when you
sweet segue, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What'd you say?
I said sweet segue, right?
Yeah, you actually think we know what we're doing by the sounds of it.
We don't.
No, we're making it all up as we go. I don't even know what page number this is on. We've just been talking, folks. No, seriously, page 16 is where we're at. There's a section called Getting It Together. It starts off explaining, that your crazy is critically hampered by one or more of his psychological hindrances. In game terms, you're going to get penalties to your trait rolls. You're going to, for the duration of getting it together. And when you're role playing it, supposed your character's racked with guilt or, has a serious depression because he killed someone. Maybe he has an irrational fear of those flies flying around, delusions of grandeur or otherwise. These are the moments when a lot of the psychic degradation and a lot of the things like your monologuer would come into play. You never know when that stuff might happen, and they're great role-playing moments. But for the character, there's some penalties to your trait rolls, and all of those penalties, they're based on the smarts roll made to come out of the losing it state in the first place. So when you make that roll on a raise, you're going to spend a certain number of minutes getting it together. When you make that, if you make that smarts roll and it's only a regular success, you're going to spend anywhere from 1 to 60 minutes in a getting it together state. If you fail that roll, it's going to take you hours. And if you make a critical failure, God forbid, right, you roll ones, snake eyes on those, you're going to spend up to 24 hours with those trait roll penalties. And you're going to have, from a role-playing perspective, those penalties and those fears and depressions and other delusions that you have are going to come into play. So it's just absolutely debilitating. You got to take the bad with the good, and that's one of the big hindrances with taking that mom conversion and becoming a crazy. You get to lose it, and you get to be fearless, and you get the berserk edge, and you get all these bonuses in combat on top of all your great abilities and bonuses. But eventually, you're going to come down from that high, and you've got to get it together. And for some people, they don't really get it together. They just go from moment to moment.
It's systems like this or the mechanics like this inside of Savage Worlds that really make me appreciate the complexity, yet the simplicity of the system. So you go into losing it, and you start getting all these bonuses. You get berserk, you get fearless. When it's all said and done, you got to get it together. So you just make a simple smarts roll. And depending on the outcome of that roll is how long you're going to be in a complete blubbery mess. And you're going to be taking negatives to your trait rolls until you actually get it together. And it's a simple mechanic. It's easy to remember. There's nothing complicated about it. And it's one of the systems. This is what draws me to Savage Worlds. It's just things like this. It's simple, it's elegant, and it's at the same time a touch complex.
Just enough, right? I think that's a good way to explain Savage Worlds. It's simple and it's just enough, but it's just a touch complex enough for you to have to stop and think. There is a process. I do have to follow A plus B equals C, but what is that? And you just fill in the blanks, and it's real straightforward. It's the keep it simple attitude towards writing a role-playing game system. And I've had a discussion with Shane before, and I've told him it's the way this flows and the way it plays, it almost makes you feel stupid, because you're like, why haven't I thought of this before? Why are all the other role-playing game systems so complicated? Why do they put so much math involved? There's 2 paragraphs. It's the left column of page 16 of the Tommorow Legion Players Guide, and the actual OCC and Rifts is like 5 or 6 full 8.5 by 11 pages long of the different types of abilities, powers, and things that you can do that cover losing it and getting it together and a bunch of other stuff. So it's amazing. I absolutely love it. And you're right. That's one of the reasons why I fell in love with it too. It's simplicity and it has just enough complexity.
It's fantastic. Crazy abilities and bonuses. Crazies are super commandos. Difficult to lead, but fantastically capable in high-risk situations.
Yeah,
so
you become like super ninjas. Like I said before, you're short of a superhuman juicer with psychic abilities. That's kind of a quick way to describe it. But there's lots of different abilities and powers that they get. Bioregeneration. You get a natural healing roll every 24 hours. Enhanced attributes. You get bonuses to your die type. Not a plus bonus, like +1 or +2 to the roll. You get, like, if you have a D6, that D6 becomes a D10 as a bonus to agility, strength, vigor. And guess what? There's no maximum for that.
Yeah, entire die types. That's very cool.
Yeah. Now, stop and think about that, folks. You could have a character where you build him up and you start him, with, you spend a couple of points and you get him into a D8 in your agility. You could possibly have that character rolling D12 +5 plus a D6 with extra effort, an additional D6. You got a D12, a D6, and 2D6, all rolled for just an agility trait roll, and you get to add 5 to whatever the highest number is. And if the dice explode, these are the reasons why I was rolling like 38 during Sean Patrick Bannon's game when I was playing a Leyline Walker. I was rolling numbers that were just absurd on 6-sided. And it's like, oh, it explodes. Oh, it explodes. Wait, extra effort. Oh, it explodes. So I rolled 37. And he was like, no, that's not real. And everybody's like, no, really? That's what he rolled. Look. And he wasn't believing it. And I did that. Like, I just was on a hot streak. But it's possible because of the rules like this that are able to change your die types and add attribute bonuses. And a lot of people who've played Savage Worlds will tell you it's very difficult. You have to spend a lot of experience points and hours role-playing with that character to get it up to use the D10, the D12 dice, and to get up in that higher echelon. But this is Rifts. Your starting character could start at that level. Yeah, and that's where things get crazy.
And if that's not enough, you imagine that you start combat and your pace is doubled with the enhanced speed feature that they get. So,
and then, on top of that, you have heightened senses and you get bonuses to notice and tracking rolls, and you get to ignore range penalties because you are not powerful enough, right?
Yeah. The minor psionics, I wasn't aware that they got this, but by the looks of it, you get like the arcane background psionics with like 10 power points and 3 powers.
Yeah, so in Rifts, they call PowerPoints either ISP, individual psychic potential, and PowerPoints, ISP, whatever you call it, whatever wrapper you want to put on it, whatever trappings you want to put on it, they just get 10 PowerPoints. And they do get 3 powers, and then your psionic skill starts off, I think, at a D6. So that's, whenever you try to use a power, you would roll that die. But crazies have access to I think 25, 26 different powers out of the powers rulebook from the main Savage Worlds Deluxe rules. You just apply your trappings and, your crazy could be shooting bolts of lightning from his eyes like Shazam or something, whatever you want it to be.
That's awesome.
I knew a character that did that. He took a comic book character and he decided to make it the crazy that was his alter ego. So, like Shazam would say Shazam and he would turn into the superhero. Well, this guy would say something like sausages or something really funky. And he would turn into a superhero, but only he could see the superhero persona. To us, he was still the same character, but he was great when he acted like him. So we kept him and we kept playing with him. It was an awesome idea.
That's neat. I like how there's your starting characters in Rift. They get so many things. There's so many bonuses and benefits, like right out of the gate. They don't feel like novice players that just have a couple of skills. You also start with the quick edge. You get super endurance, which means you can you only require half the amount of sleep. You get +4 on all checks to resist fatigue. You get uncanny reflexes. As long as you're aware of being hit, you get a -2, or the opposing whoever's trying to hit you gets a -2 to their roll to try and hit you, as long as you're aware or can see it. And that's just like little things like that make a big difference in the long run, which is really neat. But
yeah, I mean, like you were saying earlier, I mean, there's powers after powers after powers, and psychic powers and heightened senses. And a lot of people who are listening to the podcast who never played Savage Rifts or never played Rifts at all are probably thinking like, wow, you get all these powers as a starting character. So how do you gain more abilities? How do you, grow as a character? And that's the really cool thing about Savage Worlds. Despite the fact that you start out with a lot of power limitations, believe it or not, that's not the upper echelon of the power, I would say, band. I mean, you got a whole lot more jumping to do to be able to play with the big boys in Savage Rifts. I had 5 guys who had starting characters that had a couple of points of experience and maybe had leveled up once or twice. And they went up against a Splugorth, 5 warrior women, and a bunch of the floating eyes that were protective orbs for the Splugorth. And they got trounced. They had to run. And they're like, but this is impossible. I mean, he's a leyline walker. He's a psychic. He's a juicer. He's like 8 foot, 400 pounds. Sorry, if the juicer can't see, he can't do anything. And the Splugorth blinded him. And it's that kind of stuff that until you start getting into the game and starting to realize, like, yes, these are a lot of powers, a lot of abilities, and it sounds like your character's really maxed out, but it's not. It's balanced out with all the hindrances, like the crazy when you start losing it, or like you when you go into that monologuer as one of your psyche degradations, and all the other penalties. It balances out really smoothly. Surprisingly, and I was surprised by it, the system balances out, in my opinion, better in Savage Worlds than it did in the Palladium system. And I don't know if it has to do with the math or just the elegance and the simplicity of the Savage Worlds system. I'm not sure. And to be honest with you, I don't really want to know. I'm just telling you from experience. I like the way this game plays. And yeah, I'm a big Savage Worlds fan, but that has nothing to do with it. The way it sounds, the way it plays, the way the dice roll, the way everything kind of moves around and shifts. Really great work done. Can't say that enough. The people in the team, Sean and the guys who put this together, they had some really unique ideas that really made the game work. And that's not easy to do with the Rifts game. And the Crazy OCC is a really great example of that, just simply because of all the bonuses, all the penalties, all the complications, everything all put together. You're thinking, like, how is a guy with MPD and a psychosis and a fear of bats, going to become a super ninja? And then you see him leap from a building and fly with no wings, but he manages to do it. That should be your answer. That's he lands and he goes, I'm Batman, but he's not wearing a cape and he's not wearing anything black. And he's like, 5'11" and 100 pounds in his underwear.
In his underwear.
With a bat tattoo behind his ear. That kind of stuff. It's just, I don't know. It's that kind of stuff that you want to play whenever you're doing the crazy. You can really reach out there. And it's really done really elegantly with the crazy.
Yeah.
I really like the way they did it.
From an outsider's perspective looking in, when I start reading some of the stuff and how things sort of link together, the good, the bad, everything sort of seems to make sense. There's nothing overly complicated about the different character classes. You really have to do a lot of reading and really sort of dig into what they're all about. But, all the crazy abilities that they get are sort of offset by some of the crazy complications that they get. There's quite a few of the negatives that unlike Dungeons and Dragons, where everybody's a special snowflake and nobody has any negatives, right. This really adds to the gameplay, and it really adds to your characters, their feel and their personality.
Right. So let's talk about those crazy complications there, Gary. One of the complications you may have is called cybernetics. Now, crazies, whenever they put together, whenever they get any cybernetics, and yes, you can have cybernetics on top of all the other abilities and bonuses and psionics that you have. If you're crazy, is really crazy, you can add in cybernetics, and they suffer the same penalty as everyone else does whenever they have to use their psionics or any special abilities or stuff like that. That's for every point of strain, you get a -1. And in this case, that's one of the sufferings, which is a pretty standard rule for cybernetics. They also go into distinctive appearance. Now, this is where you can get into some really unique situations on what your character looks like. Like I said, the superhero character, or maybe the Batman character, he's in his underwear. He can only use his superpowers when he's partially naked. or 90% naked. And it's a lot of fun to play. You think it's funny, but man, you'd be surprised what it looks like when you see this skinny guy running down the middle of the street and a bunch of coalition soldiers are running the opposite direction because he thinks he's Batman. That's absolutely role-playing gold right there. That's the kind of stuff you want to put on film because you won't believe it until you see it. But, a lot of the distinctive appearances, they talk about things like the protrusions coming out of the skull isn't the only thing that, might be wrong with the character physically. He might have tattoos, body piercings. He might have, like that one guy that had a pipe duct taped to his shoulder and he thought he was a glitter, a living glitter boy. I mean, that kind of stuff is the kind of things that you can make the appearance really distinctive and really unique for a crazy. It also goes into what mom implants do to magic and what you can and cannot do. As far as I know of, I believe this states that you cannot have any magic arcane background as a crazy. The mom implants just screw your mind up. You can't use magic at all. It's impossible.
Yep, so you just get that touch of psionics, which psionics is basically magic. You're just trapping it as powers that come out of your mind instead anyway. So you just can't have any of the other cool kinds of magics. You can, you're limited to these deals.
Oh, darn.
Yeah. Needs action. What is this?
So just, crazies, they all have these psychoses, these little fidgeting things that they can't sit still. They have attention deficit disorder to the 100th power. They need action. They crave it. They always have to be, they're like adrenaline junkies. They always have to be on, always have to be working through it. Because when they don't, they get depressed, they get bored, they get listless, they get sleepy. They just don't want to do anything. And nothing's worse than a crazy who's bored. Trust me. Wow. If you guys think a Kender is bad when they say, oops, a bored crazy is the worst thing you could possibly have in your party because that's when the fun stuff starts happening. So during particularly slow periods, the GM can say, he's going to call for a spirit roll. Say that there's a long journey and they have to spend a long time in a beat up bus traveling, 600 miles across the state or whatever to be able to get to the place they're at because nobody has the ability to travel or there's no magic or whatever. So the GM calls for a spirit roll from the crazy. If he fails, he gets a penalty to his charisma because he or she becomes irritable, impatient, fidgety, just starts getting mad at the world because he's like, come on, I want to blow something up. Let me go take the tire off the car. But we're rolling, or we're driving. Well, that's okay. You guys have 3 others.
This all of a sudden it's starting to feel a lot like the girlfriend class all of a sudden. Sorry.
I love it. No, that's okay. Thank you for using your inner voice, Gary.
Sorry.
But you start taking penalties to your charisma. You start suffering penalties to all of your trait rolls because you become distracted by the craziness that is not you. The characters around you sometimes can be distracted. So the crazy definitely gets a trait roll penalty.
Yeah. And then lastly, they've got unstable psyche. So this is something that you're going to take from the start. And there's a table here. You just basically you roll a d6 and you get some kind of hindrance. One of them, like we talked about earlier, was the monologuer. You could have a phobia, overconfident, delusional. There's a little table that you can roll on, and you got to take one of these and slap it on your character so that you kind of get that touch of crazy.
Yeah, because they're not crazy enough already. Yeah, one of the ones that I like, which really goes into the, the naked Batman kind of concept, is overconfident. The crazy thing with this hindrance, he becomes an adrenaline junkie, and he gets to you re-roll this if you already have this hindrance. But he's overconfident to the point where he thinks he's a superhero. He thinks he's Batman, and that's where his overconfidence comes from, or it is generated from. You just have to learn to adapt some of the stuff that's on the table and some of the psychosis and things, and make them work for your character. I can almost guarantee you, no one's going to tell you you're doing it wrong. Don't think there's a right way to do it because the human mind is just as twisted as everyone else's is, and a crazy's way out on the deep end. So no one usually questions the crazy when he starts talking to himself and the voices answer back.
Absolutely. We're going to wrap this up with some crazy starting gear. There's a little section here, a little blurb that tells you what they get, and it's another cool thing about Rifts too. You don't start off like packing a slingshot right out of the gate, you've got like personal armor, you've got laser pistols, you got a laser rifle, vibro swords. Like you start off with some cash and whatnot, but you start off Rifts like actually being able to like punch somebody in the face and seriously doing some damage, which is pretty neat.
Again, usually end up punching them in the face and punching them through their skull because you do mega damage instead of regular damage, and if they're not protected by any kind of mega armor, you literally punch through their skull. I've seen a lot of people happen, and a lot of GMs kind of let that slip. When you have someone like a Combat Cyborg who has a D12 plus 4 as their strength, they're going to punch through concrete. It's just how they're built. It's what they're made to do. Unless the concrete has some serious reinforcement or whatever, and I'm sure the human skull isn't that tough considering the power level and strength level. But you're right. There's a last little blurb on page 17. Absolutely love it. It just kind of summarizes what we've been talking about over the last couple pages. The ability to go berserk. It's super powerful. Even when you have to worry about the hindrance of getting it together, use those edges to really enhance that gift, because you'd be surprised how many giveaways the GM's going to let you get away with that you wouldn't normally if the character wasn't as crazy as he is. Use the hindrances to role play your to get some great role playing tools, or use them to your advantage. There's no such thing as overplaying a crazy. You can't overplay your hindrances. It's the most fun role playing I think I've ever had. And last but not least, don't ignore those minor psionics. Those are absolutely awesome tips. You can find a bunch of little blurbs like that as you go throughout all the iconic character classes. Even the ones where we go into next, you're talking about the Juicer, the Cyber Knight. We still have quite a few to talk about, but there's some really great little sidebars that they talk about all the special bonuses, all the little hints on how to survive as a Cyber Knight, or what it means to be a glitter boy, what is burnout, and short campaigns. Literally in 6 or 7 sentences, they summarize everything that we talk about almost every week. And if you haven't picked up the Tommorow Legion Players Guide, what are you waiting for? It's the cheapest, greatest piece of RPG fandom in the last probably 20 years that I think I've seen, that'll give you the most playing time out of any other game out there. And if you can't find anyone to play with you, give me a call, hit me up on Google Plus. We'll get online and we'll play a game. I know, Gary, you're in the queue to get started with playing a game with me, and I know we've been talking about that for a minute. We need to get some people together and get that started. So maybe you can join Gary and us onto Hangouts or something, or over Skype, and we can play a couple of games of Savage Rifts. I'd love to put anybody into a game who wants to join it. But just on a caveat, the queue is pretty deep right now, so I'll have to work you into a group eventually. My gaming schedule is almost as busy as my work schedule, so if you're patient with me, I guarantee you we'll get a game in on there. You're at the top of the list, Gary. Oh, cool. For a second there, I kind of felt like the fat chick outside the discotheque, waiting in line way at the back. Everybody's passing her. You're the skinny chick with not a lot of clothes on, so I think I'll go with that one. Nice. All right, well, that wraps up the crazy. Well, that's it. We covered the entire topic. We're going to put a pin in this one. Next week, we're going to be going over the Cyber Knight. So stay tuned for that. And let's wrap this up by getting into the fray. This is where we hop into a portal and get magically whisked away somewhere. Whee! I'm just going to go right into it from here. Knock yourself out. Well, the sweet sound of that rift opening means it's time to pack up and portal out. Can we cuddle when we go through this rift this time, Victor? Last time we ended up going on vacation for a few weeks, and it was really scary. You can cuddle with yourself all you want. Just remember, crazies hold themselves. There's all enough of day. Me. There's enough of me to go around. Tune in next time when we will be going over the Cyber Knight. We'll have another action-packed show tackling more on the character section in this player's guide. There is a lot of material in this amazing universal setting. Victor, you got anything else you want to throw in there? Anything else you want to add in before I hit the special notes section and we wrap this up? You know what? Just thanks very much, Gary, for putting up with me and putting up with all the craziness and the scheduling and everything. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, if you guys have anything you guys want to talk to us about, please email us at themurderhoboshow@gmail.com. Catch us up on Twitter at The Murder Hobo Show. And lastly, you can find us on, of course, the Savage Rifts Google Plus page. And there's even a Savage Rifts Facebook page. So if you get a moment, look up Murder Hobo Show, look up Savage Rifts, come and join the community. We have about 500 people or so already talking about it. I'd love to see 500 people more. But one at a time, please.
That's right. We've got we said it earlier, you might not be a fan of G Plus, might not want to come over, but we've got a Nerds International group over there. There's a lot of great content creators. There's a lot of great people hanging around on G Plus. It's not your Facebook dribble that I'm really sort of getting a little irritated with, but we're not here to talk about that. One of the guys that started all of this back in the day, put the Wild Eye together, that's how when I first started getting into it, is Jamie Pearson. He runs the RPG Brewery now, and he's in a bit of a pickle. And, you might think that this is, a handout, but he's got a GoFundMe page. He's looking to get a new PC put together because he doesn't have the money and his PC kind of crapped out. This guy puts together a butt ton of content. He's got some, famous people coming on the show talking about different Savage Worlds aspects. And, he did put together the Wild Eye. He started that off. He put together Nerds International. He runs a whole bunch of things and sort of organizes, a ton of stuff inside the Nerds International community. And he's looking for a little help. Head over to the GoFundMe for the RPG Brewery. If you got a couple of bucks to throw his way, have at it. Help him, get his PC up and running so that we can enjoy more of his great work. He really puts a lot of stuff into it. They're doing Pathfinder, I believe, in Fantasy Grounds, which I'm actually really enjoying. I'm not a fan of Pathfinder, and I was ribbing him actually a little while ago. They did an hour and a half combat to kill a freaking Quasit, and I'm like, Savage Worlds for the win, tard. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. And of course, the one person that I seem to always talk about is ZOVYA. I can't say enough good things about my favorite Patreon. Between her and Printable Heroes, not only is she a super sexy Russian killing machine, she's also an extremely talented artist. In the month of August that we were away, she has pumped out an ancient portal map, a white sand beach map if you're playing 50 Fathoms or something like that. She's got a galleon, which is this beautiful ship, man, shadows and all the ropes hanging off it and stuff. But not only is it just these maps, each maps have variants. The galleon has a map where it's at a wharf or docked. So, you've got the wooden wharf and stuff like that, the sandy beach, all of that stuff. And then also you've got it where it's just out in the ocean running around doing its thing. So, super handy. They're gridded. They're not gridded. They come, built for Fantasy Grounds, built for Roll20. And if you didn't think that all of those extra maps were worth it, she has these props that she puts together. Sunken chests, barrels, beds, bottles, chairs, papers, mushrooms, potions, so much more. But the icing on the cake, miniatures. She has Aarakocra, clockwork scorpion looking things. There's a bar wench, elf mage, gelatinous cube, monk, female pirates. Like, you really get your money's worth with her artwork and what she does, and it's beautiful. Like, it's stunningly cool looking stuff. And the reason that I actually don't even know what she looks like, I just talk to her every once in a while. She's got like a really quirky voice, which I just find amusing. But the reason I talk about her so much is because I really want her to stick around, and I really want more of her work. It's amazing. It is so worth it. If you got a couple more shekels to kick around, head over to patreon.com and check out ZOVYA. Her artwork for playing VTT games and stuff like that is just, it's amazing. I literally think it's the best that you can get. That said, Victor, it's cuddle time. Let's hop into this portal and call her done.
All right, Gary, hold on. Somebody pray for me.
Oh, thanks, everybody. We're out.
Have a great night. Game on.